Joining me now are Jeremy Bash, the former chief of staff at CIA and Pentagon, and Frank Figliuzzi, a former assistant director of the FBI's counterintelligence division. His upcoming book is The FBI Way, Inside the Bureau's Code of Excellence, which is available now for pre-order. Frank, last night's announcement, first of all, it was billed as a news conference. It wasn't. They didn't take questions. It was led by the DNI, making a statement about the political conclusions of this, saying that Iran is trying to, quote, damage President Trump. That's not typical. What strikes you?
No, there was nothing typical about last night's press conference. In fact, as press conferences go, Andrea, it was essentially a bust. It didn't follow the basic tenets of a good press conference. Be transparent. Establish trust and credibility through transparency. Tell the people everything you can possibly tell them, within reason. And then give them a plan, the next steps, and tell them you're going to update them frequently. None of that happened. So we have more questions than answers. And the fact that essentially a politician, a political crony of the president's who lacks trust and credibility, led that press conference does not lead us to be more assured. In fact, it leads us to have many, many questions about what's happening here. It's essentially the equivalent on the COVID side of public relations of not allowing Dr. Fauci to be the spokesperson and having politicians tell us about a virus. So that's what's happening here. And so I'm very deeply disturbed on the cyber side about the fact that two foreign adversaries have allegedly gotten a hold of American voter registration data. And we don't know what that means. Is it read only? Can they manipulate the data? Can they delete the data that they're looking at? What does it mean? Where did it happen? How do we fix and patch the holes? Where does that money come from? Lots of unanswered questions. Not a good press conference last night.
And Christopher Wray sort of sidelined giving a statement but not speaking to the substance of the issues. The Washington Post is reporting that win or lose, the president wants to fire Chris Wray after the election. He's supposed to have a 10-year term to take him out of politics. First to you, Frank, because you come out of the FBI, how is that affecting morale?
Well, look, I think what we saw last night was the FBI director clearly taking a backseat to a political a crony of the president's. And I think that hanging over his head, that kind of sword of Damocles, that I might not allow you to go your 10-year term, just as the president intervened with Comey's 10-year term, is politicizing the FBI and the intelligence community writ large. This can't continue to go on, or we will lose in the world. We will lose trust and credibility when we need it the most, when our intelligence agencies need to show that they've got solid proof of something happening. We're losing it. And the American people right now need to trust the outcome of the election. Last night's press conference didn't help us do that.
Now, Senator Schumer and others were briefed on the Hill as well. And last night, Senator Schumer, Jeremy, went on with Rachel Maddow and said he was taking this seriously, that there was something here, but did not take at all from the briefing what the DNI said was that this was done to hurt Donald Trump's selection. That's not the way he read the briefers, what the briefers were telling them. It also seemed as though the DNI was deliberately downplaying the Russian angle and really focusing on Iran, who is obviously, a major target for the president. Did you read it the same way?
Well, I do give credit to folks at the Department of Homeland Security and at the FBI because they have been very carefully watching what foreign actors are doing. And I think it's clear, as Senator Schumer pointed out, that all foreign adversaries fundamentally want to sow chaos because a presidential election is the crown jewel of American democracy. And so if they can disrupt that, obviously that denigrates the standing of the United States and our ability to export our values and our democracy. I do agree, though, Andrea, that the analysis that was put forward by the DNI at the press conference was a little thin. I mean, basically, he said this was done to damage Trump. I mean, I didn't read it necessarily that way. The emails actually went to Democrats and threatened them and said, don't show up at the polls. I would think that would be more damaging to Joe Biden. Maybe we're ascribing too many motives to the Iranians. Maybe they're not playing fifth-dimensional chess, as one official told me. But I just think this is a serious issue. But also, let's not overstate it. The voting process has integrity. People should feel good about going to the polls. I'm much more concerned about more capable actors like Russia because they have shown that they prefer a candidate in this race and they will hack and dump and engage in propaganda on a scale that, frankly, the Iranians can't do as well.
And is one of the reasons that they came out to try to reassure people of that. There has been certainly a lot of criticism, including from Democrats, that the Obama administration, in trying to avoid putting a finger on the scale on behalf of Hillary Clinton, did not come out strongly enough to say what was going on, what they knew to be going on from the intelligence services.
If you're asking me, Andrea, I would say that all national security officials are in heightened state of alert after what happened in 2016. Look, I think after 2016, frankly, it was open season because not only did Russia pay no price for their interference on behalf of Trump, I actually think they were rewarded. They got invited into the G7. NATO was undermined. Russia paid no price for putting a bounty on the heads of U.S. service members in Afghanistan. Every decision by this administration has been so pro-Putin and pro-Russia that I actually think Russia looked at what they did in 2016 and said, we got a lot of bang for our buck. Let's do it again.
That's pretty frightening indeed. Jeremy, Bash, thank you. Frank Figliuzzi as well. Thank you both.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.